it's done a little bit differently. So don't line it up yourself. Again, don't try not to touch the tip of the tool that made the mark. Also, if you have little paint stains on the tip of the tool, you might scratch it off if you put it close to there. So keep everything as it is until it gets to the crime lab, and they can analyze paint by itself, and they'll analyze the tool marks and the photographs by themselves without risking loss of any evidence. The way it's usually done is you take, I'm assuming this is again a comparison microscope, you can probably tell. This is the actual tool mark, the photograph of the actual tool mark. And this is when they took the suspected tool and they scratched it on a soft metal. Lead. Lead is a soft metal. They scratched on it, and they said, well, this is the tool mark I think this is at the crime scene. This was done on soft lead, and take a look. We can see the striations here. They sure look like they match pretty well. Remember, if it would be a completely different tool, you'd have completely different striations. So it sure looks like this was the tool used to do the crime. So you can actually identify the tool. I don't know if this tool that they used, that they picked up, was at the crime scene, or maybe they found it in a suspect's house. Whatever it was, they were able to identify and to match the tool, the suspected tool, the suspect's tool, to the actual tool used at the crime scene. Incidentally, you can't just draw it, like scrape it, in one, vertically. You also should do it at an angle, because the tool marks at the crime scene might have been done at an angle too. So try doing them all. A minor problem is if you keep scratching it, it might actually ruin the tool marks on the tool. But generally, if you use lead, it won't. It's very soft. Well, I guess soft lead. It won't cause too many problems. And again, you use a comparison microscope. It's not just tool marks like from screwdrivers. Impressions include shoe prints, body part prints, like a person gets hit by a car. Sometimes he's wearing a belt, let's say a special belt that gets imprinted on the car. Like if you have a hit and run, and the person says, "This I don't know the car that hit me," but they actually find a car that has an imprint of, let's say, his belt. You can use this to identify the car that hit the person. So yeah, you can actually have a body part print, often with a car. Sometimes something used in commission of a crime is put on mud. So they say, aha, the tool used for this crime was here. So we have to try to find out who else was here. Maybe we can find out who did the original crime. So that can happen too. There are tire tracks. Those are obvious. We're not going to be talking much about them. It's a very interesting subject. We will not be dealing with that, like the tire track, comparing it. There's certain kind of grooves in the tire, relating it to the original car, the way the car turns, the way the car was driven. A lot of things can actually be found from tire tracks, but they are impressions, and what we need to do is record them. Also, bite marks. I think Ted Bundy was a famous serial killer, and he would hurt his victims by biting them, and they actually were able to connect various crimes of his by his tooth marks that he left on his victims. So you get an impression. What you have to do is record it, photograph. Definitely photograph it, and put a ruler in there so you know the scale, so you know the size of it. That's as you always do, but especially for impressions, because we want to know, let's say, how big his footprint was or whatever it was. We want to know how big it was. We need a scale in there. We don't just photograph it from above. We have to change the angle of lighting, because these are impressions. They might be slightly deeper in one place, even if it's in dust. It might be slightly deeper in the dust, in one part than another. So if you change the angle, you'll be able to see like more shadowing. So you'll be able to see more depth. You might be able to catch a few scratches and grooves that'll show up when you do it in a different angle. Also, don't just photograph it, to get a close up. Do it relative to the surroundings, like it might be in a room or it might be in a driveway. Photograph what's around it as well. And the photographs are not enough. You should try to lift it if you can. Now, earlier we spoke about a resin that's not always good for various various impressions. What you have to do is actually make a plaster cast or some other kind of cast of it. That's with the shoe and tire imprints. We also would like to know the depth of it because, so again, a photograph will not show the depth, and we would like to know the depth, so we actually want to get a real impression. So again, sometimes you don't get some, and in some cases you don't have the depth, but we still want to get the impression. If it's a small print, let's say like on the floor over here, you know, not much depth over there. We want to lift it, we want to remove it. What is used? We use like a gel lifter, sticky tape, in this case like a paper. They put it on. They put it on the print. They lift it off, and when they lift it off, you get a pretty decent impression. And what that in this case the footprint. You can actually see from this footprint. Probably can tell the style of shoe. Certainly, if you have a suspect, you can ask for a shoe and compare it, and it's pretty clear. So that's one thing that works. It works with footprints on concrete also. However, I mean, make sure there are no bubbles, because then you're going to get a big bubble in there. It'll confuse things. Okay, if it's dust, just dust, you can actually lift it electrostatically. You put this mylar film on top of it, give it an electrostatic charge. It'll, it won't exactly suck it up, but it'll just lift it right up onto the mylar film. This is actually a very efficient way of getting dust prints, of prints in dust. Another reason, by the way, that we don't just want a picture is that we can enhance it if we have the actual print. We do this, only with the actual print, let's say of the footprint, but now it doesn't really work with photographs, obviously. So, for example, the print can be in blood. This is very often happens at violent crimes. There's a lot of blood everywhere, and the criminal is not necessarily going to be, being very careful with his feet, where he steps. He wants to get out of there, let's say. So he's going to have bloody shoes, and he's going to walk across the floor. Now, you're not necessarily going to get blood all over every part of his shoe. So, at least not visibly. So what's done is, if you see the footprint on the floor, we spray, we lift the print if we can, and we might not get a complete print because you can't see a complete print because the blood might not cover his entire shoe. But if we spray with luminol, even tiny amounts of trace amounts of blood, they're not visible to the eye. You put luminol on it, and in a dark room you can make it glow. So you'll tell even where the tiny amounts of blood are. So if we, let's say, have a visible footprint of, let's say, the top half of the shoe, we can spray everything with luminol, and we'll actually get the print from the bottom half, even because we don't see it, but it's there, and the luminol will make it clear. So we can get a complete print where what's visible is only half a print. So we can enhance it with, in this case, chemically. And that's why it's another reason to lift the entire print. There are also prints that are not just at the surface; they have depth. We mentioned that tool marks, but not just tool marks. We're talking about impressions, shoe and tire marks. They have a certain depth, and we really do want to know the depth. With the depth, we can find out a couple of things that we would not find otherwise. For example, how heavy was the guy who had his footprint? How heavy was the car that left a certain